Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you will shake you to your core. This is the story of Maya, a woman who thought she was living a fairy tale, only to discover she was trapped in the most twisted nightmare imaginable. And when I tell you what her own family did to her, what they took from her, what they stole, what they destroyed, your blood will boil just like mine does every time I think about this absolute betrayal. Picture this: the most beautiful seaside wedding you've ever imagined. Azure Dunes Resort, where the elite go to celebrate their most precious moments. Crystal chandeliers casting rainbows across marble floors. White roses and baby's breath arranged in towering displays that cost more than most people's cars. The kind of wedding that makes you believe in happily ever after, you know? The kind that gets featured in magazines and makes other brides weep with envy. Maya stood there in her custom Vera Wang gown, pure silk, hand-beaded with pearls that caught the light like stars. She looked like a princess stepping out of a dream. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, secured with her grandmother's diamond pins. She was radiant, glowing with what everyone assumed was pure bridal joy. But I need you to understand something. Maya wasn't just beautiful that day. She was vulnerable. She was trusting. She believed in the goodness of the people she loved most in this world. And that trust, that beautiful, innocent trust, it was about to be shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Maya had always been the quiet one, the dependable daughter, the one who never caused drama. While her cousin Clara was out there living it up, being the center of attention at every family gathering, Maya was the responsible one. She studied hard, worked in her father's business, never asked for anything extravagant. She was the firstborn of Marcus Chen, a business magnate who built his empire in the hospitality industry. Hotels, resorts, restaurants. If it had to do with luxury and service, Marcus Chen's name was on it. But here's what nobody knew, and I mean nobody. That empire was crumbling. The foundation was rotting from the inside out, and Marcus Chen was drowning in debt and desperation. The man who appeared to have everything was actually losing it all, one bad decision at a time. Enter Ethan Rodriguez, charming, ambitious, with those devastating dark eyes and that smile that could make any woman weak in the knees. He started as just another employee in the hotel chain, working his way up through what everyone assumed was pure talent and dedication. Maya noticed him, of course. How could she not? He was magnetic in that dangerous way that should have been a red flag. But when you're a quiet, sheltered young woman who's never really experienced passion, you mistake danger for excitement. Their courtship was like something out of a romantic movie. Candlelit dinners on private beaches, weekend getaways to exclusive resorts. Ethan knew exactly what to say, exactly how to make Maya feel like she was the most important person in his world. He proposed on the anniversary of their first date, getting down on one knee in the same spot where they'd shared their first kiss. The ring was magnificent, a 3-carat diamond surrounded by sapphires that matched her eyes. Maya's father was thrilled. Thrilled. He welcomed Ethan into the family like he was the son he'd never had. Promoted him, gave him access to company accounts, brought him into board meetings. Maya thought it was because her father could see how much she loved Ethan, how happy he made her. She thought it was a father's blessing on his daughter's choice. She had no idea she was being sold like livestock. And Clara, oh sweet, spoiled, attention-seeking Clara. Maya's cousin had always been the family darling, the one who got away with everything because she was just so vivacious, so full of life. She was the one who could make Uncle Marcus laugh when business was stressing him out. She was the one who could charm investors at company parties. She was everything Maya thought she could never be: bold, confident, captivating. Maya loved Clara. She loved her. They'd grown up together, shared secrets, braided each other's hair, promised they'd be each other's maid of honor someday. Clara was like the sister Maya never had, the best friend who understood her better than anyone else in the world. But Clara was watching, and wanting, always wanting what Maya had. The wedding day arrived like a dream. 300 guests filled the resort's grand ballroom. Politicians, business leaders, celebrities, everyone who was anyone was there to witness what the society pages were calling the wedding of the decade. Maya's mother, Elena, looked stunning in midnight blue silk, though Maya noticed she seemed unusually nervous. Her hands shook slightly as she helped Maya with her veil, and she kept checking her phone with this worried expression. "Are you okay, Mom?" Maya asked, concerned. Elena forced a smile. "Just emotional, darling. My baby girl's getting married." But there was something else in her mother's eyes, something that looked almost like fear. Maya dismissed it. Wedding nerves, she told herself. Everyone gets emotional at weddings. The ceremony was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Ethan looked like a prince in his custom tuxedo, his voice strong and clear as he recited his vows. Maya felt like she was floating as she promised to love, honor, and cherish him for the rest of her life. When he kissed her, the crowd erupted in applause. And for that moment, that one shining, perfect moment, Maya believed she was the luckiest woman alive. The reception was magical. The first dance was to At Last by Etta James. Maya's choice because that's exactly how she felt. At last, she'd found her person. At last, she was exactly where she belonged. At last, her life was beginning. The dinner was exquisite. 5 courses prepared by a Michelin-starred chef. Champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. Speeches from family and friends that brought tears to everyone's eyes. Maya's father talked about how proud he was, how Ethan was exactly the kind of man he'd always hoped his daughter would find. Clara gave a maid of honor speech that was funny and heartfelt, talking about their childhood together and how happy she was to see Maya so in love. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. And then came the moment that would destroy everything Maya thought she knew about her life. After the formal toasts, Ethan stood up again. Maya smiled, thinking maybe he wanted to thank the guests one more time, or perhaps say something special about their parents. She was glowing with happiness, surrounded by everyone she loved most in the world. Ethan took the microphone, and his voice rang out clear and strong across the reception hall. "Before we end this incredible evening," he began, "I want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate with us." Maya beamed up at him, her heart so full of love she thought it might burst. "But there's something I need to say, something I can't keep inside any longer." A hush fell over the crowd. Maya felt a tiny flutter of confusion, but she kept smiling. Whatever Ethan wanted to share, she was ready to support him. "This song," Ethan continued, "belongs to the woman who truly owns my heart." Maya's smile grew wider. How romantic. He was going to dedicate a song to her in front of everyone. She started to stand, ready to join him for another dance. But Ethan didn't look at her. He walked past her, right past his bride of 3 hours, past the woman who had just promised her life to him, past the woman who loved him with every fiber of her being. He walked straight to Clara. The world stopped. Time froze. Maya watched in absolute, incomprehensible horror as her husband, took her cousin's hand and pulled her to her feet. "Clara," Ethan said into the microphone, his voice soft and tender in a way that made Maya's blood turn to ice. "You are my heart. You are my soul. You are everything I've ever wanted." The crowd erupted in confused applause. Some people were laughing, thinking this was some kind of sweet family gesture. Others looked puzzled, sensing something was wrong but not quite understanding what. But Maya understood. Oh God, Maya understood. And when she looked at Clara, her beloved cousin, her best friend, her maid of honor, Clara wasn't surprised. Clara wasn't confused. Clara was smiling, blushing, looking at Ethan with eyes full of love and longing. This wasn't a surprise to Clara. This was planned. Maya felt like she was drowning. The beautiful ballroom seemed to spin around her. The faces of the guests blurred together. The sound of applause became a roaring in her ears. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She couldn't process what was happening. Her husband was in love with her cousin. Her husband had just announced it to 300 people on their wedding day. in front of everyone they knew. Maya's mother saw it all, watched her daughter's face crumble, watched the realization hit like a physical blow. Elena Chen had suspected something wasn't right. The phone calls she'd been receiving, the anonymous tips, the growing dread in her stomach. But seeing it play out like this, seeing her baby girl's heart shattered in front of everyone, Elena's hand flew to her chest. The shock, the rage, the absolute devastation of watching her daughter be betrayed so publicly. It was too much. She gasped, swayed, and then collapsed right there at the head table. The applause stopped abruptly. Chaos erupted as people rushed to help Elena. Someone screamed for a doctor. The beautiful wedding reception descended into panic and confusion. And through it all, Maya stood frozen in her wedding dress, watching her world implode. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Elena was unconscious, her breathing shallow, her skin pale as paper. As the paramedics worked on her, Maya finally found her voice. "Stop," she whispered. Then louder, "Stop!" The music cut off. Everyone turned to look at the bride, still standing exactly where Ethan had left her. "Get out," Maya said, her voice eerily calm. "All of you, get out of my sight." But here's the thing that makes my blood boil even more than the public betrayal. Nobody stood up for her. Nobody defended her. Her own father, Marcus, was more concerned about the business implications than his daughter's shattered heart. The guests were already whispering, pulling out their phones, documenting the scandal that would be all over social media within hours. Maya was left alone, abandoned, humiliated, on what should have been the happiest day of her life. The next morning brought fresh hell. Maya woke up in the hospital chair next to her mother's bed, still wearing her wedding dress, mascara streaked down her cheeks, her hair a mess of pins and tangles. Elena was stable but sedated, the doctors saying the shock had triggered a cardiac episode. Maya's phone had been buzzing all night. Hundreds of missed calls, thousands of text messages. But when she finally looked, they weren't messages of support or concern. They were worse. The video was everywhere. Everywhere. Someone had recorded Ethan's declaration and Clara's response, and it had gone viral. The headlines were brutal. Bride left at altar as groom declares love for cousin. Wedding of the year becomes scandal of the century. Love triangle destroys society wedding. But the comments, the comments were what really twisted the knife. People weren't sympathizing with Maya. They were mocking her. How could she not know? The cousin is so much prettier anyway. Poor guy, trapped in an arranged marriage. At least he followed his heart. Follow his heart? Follow his heart? This man had lied to her for 2 years, had pretended to love her, had proposed to her, had stood in front of God and everyone and promised to be faithful to her. And people were calling him romantic? Maya's hands shook as she scrolled through the endless stream of cruelty. Her private pain had become public entertainment. Her devastation was trending on Twitter. Memes were being made of her face at the moment of realization. She was a laughingstock, a cautionary tale, a punchline, and it was about to get so much worse. When Maya finally made it home that afternoon, she found the locks changed. Her key didn't work. Her belongings were in boxes on the front porch. A note from her father was taped to the door. "You have embarrassed this family beyond repair. The wedding was supposed to save us, and you've destroyed everything. Don't come back." Save them? Save them? Maya stared at the note in complete bewilderment. What did that even mean? The wedding was supposed to be about love, about starting a new life. How was it supposed to save anyone? She called her father's phone. It went straight to voicemail. She called the office. "I'm sorry, Miss Chen, but your access has been revoked." Her credit cards were declined. Her bank accounts were frozen. Her company email was deactivated. In less than 24 hours, Maya had gone from being a beloved daughter and new bride to being completely cut off from everything she'd ever known. Meanwhile, the entertainment news shows were having a field day. Photos of Ethan and Clara appeared on every gossip site, every entertainment program. They were spotted having breakfast at the resort the morning after the wedding, holding hands, looking blissfully happy. The narrative was already being rewritten. Star-crossed lovers finally together. after years of forbidden romance. Business arrangement versus true love, Clara and Ethan's real story. The cousin who stole the groom, a modern Romeo and Juliet. A modern Romeo and Juliet? These people had destroyed Maya's life, publicly humiliated her, and caused her mother to have a heart attack, and they were being portrayed as romantic heroes. The rage I feel telling you this story, it's indescribable. This innocent woman who had done nothing wrong except trust the people she loved was being treated like the villain in her own tragedy. She was being punished for being betrayed. She was being blamed for not somehow knowing that her fiancé was in love with someone else. How was she supposed to know? How was she supposed to know? Maya had nowhere to go. Her friends, the ones she thought were her friends, had all distanced themselves. Some openly took Clara's side, saying things like, "You can't help who you love," and Ethan was brave to follow his heart. Others just disappeared entirely, not wanting to be associated with the scandal. She spent 3 days sleeping in her car, using gas station bathrooms, living off vending machine food. The woman who had grown up in luxury, who had never wanted for anything, was suddenly homeless and penniless. On the fourth day, when Maya was at her absolute lowest point, contemplating whether life was even worth living anymore, her phone rang. It was her Aunt Veronica, her mother's sister. Now, Veronica was the family black sheep. She'd never married, had worked as a nurse instead of pursuing something more prestigious, and had always been too outspoken for the family's taste. She'd been deliberately excluded from the wedding planning, invited only as an afterthought because it would have looked bad to leave her out entirely. "Maya, sweetheart, where are you?" Veronica's voice was warm and concerned. Maya broke down completely. She told her aunt everything, about being locked out, about the frozen accounts, about sleeping in her car, about feeling like her entire life had been a lie. "Come to me," Veronica said simply. "Right now. Come home." Home. The word made Maya cry even harder because she didn't think she had one anymore. Veronica lived in a modest apartment across town. Nothing like the luxury Maya had grown up with, but it was clean and comfortable and filled with warmth. More importantly, it was filled with truth. "Sit down, honey," Veronica said, making tea with hands that were steady and strong, so different from her mother's trembling fingers at the wedding. "There are things you need to know. Things your mother wanted to tell you, but never got the chance." "What kind of things?" Maya asked, though she wasn't sure she could handle any more revelations. Veronica disappeared into her bedroom and came back with a wooden box Maya had never seen before. It was old, carved with intricate designs and locked with a small brass key that Veronica wore on a chain around her neck. "Your mother brought this to me 2 weeks before the wedding," Veronica explained as she unlocked the box. "She was scared, Maya, terrified. She'd discovered something about your father's business, about Ethan, about the real reason for your marriage." Maya's heart clenched. "What do you mean, the real reason?" "This wasn't a love match, sweetheart. This was a business transaction. Your marriage was arranged to save your father's company and cover up something much, much worse." The box contained documents, contracts, financial statements, correspondence between her father and Ethan's family. As Maya read through them, the truth became clear and absolutely sickening. Ethan's family owned a major food distribution company. Marcus Chen's hotels had been buying from them for years, but recently, Marcus had been caught in a massive fraud scheme. He'd been taking food meant for charity donations, food that was supposed to go to orphanages and hospitals, and reselling it to his own restaurants at marked up prices. The money he made from this scheme, he'd been using to cover other debts and keep his business afloat. But Ethan's family had found out. They had evidence. They were going to expose him unless Marcus offered them something valuable in return. That something was Maya. The marriage contract wasn't about love. It was about silence. Ethan would marry Maya, giving his family access to the Chen fortune and business connections. And in return, they would keep quiet about the charity fraud. But here's where it gets even more twisted. Ethan had been in love with Clara the entire time. Clara knew about the arrangement. She'd been part of it from the beginning. The plan was for Ethan to marry Maya for appearances and business purposes while carrying on his real relationship with Clara in secret. The public declaration at the wedding wasn't some romantic impulse. It was the final stage of their plan. They'd gotten what they needed from the marriage contract: access to the business, the family connections, the social status. Now they could drop the pretense and be together openly, leaving Maya with nothing. Maya stared at the documents, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold them. My mother knew about this? She suspected something was wrong and hired a private investigator. The final report came in the day before your wedding. That's why she was so nervous, why she kept checking her phone. She was trying to figure out how to tell you without destroying you. But the heart attack, Veronica's face darkened. Maya, your mother didn't have a heart attack from shock. She received a text message during Ethan's speech from the investigator. He'd found something else, something even worse. Maya's blood turned to ice. What? Evidence that your mother's medication had been tampered with. Someone had been slowly poisoning her for weeks, making it look like her heart condition was worsening naturally. The room spun around Maya. Poisoning her? Who would? Why would? Your mother had become a liability. She knew too much, and she was going to expose everything to protect you. Someone needed to silence her before she could reveal the truth. Maya felt like she was going to be sick. Are you saying someone tried to kill my mother? I'm saying someone succeeded, honey. Your mother is gone. The words hit Maya like physical blows. While she'd been sitting at her mother's bedside in the hospital, believing Elena was recovering from a shock-induced cardiac episode, her mother had been dying from poison. Dying slowly, painfully, murdered by someone who wanted to keep their secrets buried. The doctor said it was her heart condition, Maya whispered. The symptoms are nearly identical, Veronica explained gently. Digitalis poisoning mimics heart failure perfectly. Unless you know to test for it specifically, it's almost impossible to detect. Maya's grief transformed into something much more dangerous. Rage. Pure, burning, all-consuming rage. Who? She demanded. Who did this to her? Veronica handed her a pharmacy receipt from the box. The signature at the bottom was one Maya recognized instantly. Ethan Rodriguez. He'd been picking up her mother's medication for weeks, claiming it was just him being helpful, being the devoted, soon-to-be son-in-law. Elena had thought it was sweet, how attentive he was to her health needs. He'd been slowly killing her the entire time. The man Maya had loved, had planned to spend her life with, had stood beside at the altar and promised to honor and cherish. That man was a murderer. He'd killed her mother to keep their scheme secret, then betrayed Maya in the most public, humiliating way possible. And Clara had known. Clara had been part of it all. Maya's hands clenched into fists. The grief was still there, would always be there. But now it was joined by something else. Something fierce and determined and absolutely unforgiving. They thought they'd destroyed her. They thought they'd taken everything and left her with nothing. They thought she'd just disappear quietly, fade away in shame and humiliation. They had no idea who they were dealing with, but Maya couldn't pursue justice alone. She needed help, needed someone who understood how these kinds of cover-ups worked. That's when Veronica mentioned David Park. David had been one of the most respected financial journalists in the country. He'd exposed corporate fraud, government corruption, charity scams, the kind of investigative reporting that won Pulitzer Prizes and changed laws. But 3 years ago, he'd gotten too close to exposing a scandal involving some very powerful people, and suddenly his career was over. He'd been blacklisted, sued into bankruptcy, his reputation destroyed by a coordinated campaign of lies and legal harassment. Now he was working as a freelance fact-checker, barely scraping by, bitter about the system that had chewed him up and spit him out. But when Veronica contacted him about Maya's situation, something in the story sparked his interest. Maybe it was the injustice of it. Maybe it was the chance for redemption. Or maybe he just recognized a kindred spirit, someone else who'd been destroyed by powerful people protecting their secrets. This is bigger than just your marriage, David told Maya when they met at a dingy coffee shop across town. This kind of charity fraud, the cover-up, the arranged marriage to hide it, this has tentacles reaching into places you can't imagine. Maya showed him everything from her mother's box. David's eyes lit up as he read through the documents. This is incredible evidence, he said, but we need more. We need to trace the money, find out exactly how much was stolen and where it went. We need to prove the connection between the fraud and your marriage arrangement, and we need to prove what happened to your mother. How do we do that? David smiled grimly. We make them think they're safe. We let them believe they've won completely, and while they're celebrating their victory, we gather every piece of evidence we need to destroy them. So Maya disappeared. She let everyone think she'd been broken by the betrayal, that she'd slunk away in shame to hide somewhere and lick her wounds. Meanwhile, she and David worked 16-hour days, following paper trails, interviewing former employees who'd been silenced by non-disclosure agreements, tracking down delivery records and financial statements. What they found was sickening beyond anything Maya had imagined. The charity fraud wasn't small scale. It wasn't just a few diverted shipments here and there. Marcus Chen had been systematically stealing from programs designed to feed sick children, elderly patients, homeless shelters, disaster relief efforts. He'd take food donations worth millions of dollars and resell them to his own restaurants, then claim the donations as tax write-offs for his company. Children went hungry while Marcus Chen profited from their suffering. But it got worse. The food he was reselling, the food that was supposed to be fresh, nutritious meals for vulnerable people, wasn't always safe. Some of it was expired. Some had been stored improperly. Some was completely spoiled. Marcus didn't care as long as he could make money from it. David found hospital records showing several cases of food poisoning at facilities that had received donated meals from Chen Industries. An elderly man had died from contaminated soup. A child with cancer had become critically ill from spoiled food that compromised her already fragile immune system. Maya's father wasn't just a thief. He was responsible for making sick people even sicker. He'd killed people through his greed and negligence. And Ethan's family had known all about it. They'd been facilitating it, providing the distribution network, helping cover it up. The marriage arrangement wasn't just about keeping them quiet. It was about making them full partners in the scheme. Clara's role was the most painful for Maya to uncover. Her beloved cousin hadn't just been Ethan's lover. She'd been the inside source, the one feeding information about the family's activities, the one who'd identified which charity programs would be easiest to exploit. She'd betrayed not just Maya personally, but hundreds of vulnerable people who depended on the food donations that Clara had helped steal. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, and absolutely clear. But Maya wanted more than just evidence. She wanted justice. She wanted the whole world to see these people for what they really were. She wanted them to feel the same humiliation, the same devastation, the same complete destruction that they'd inflicted on her. And she knew exactly how to do it. The Heritage Foundation's annual gala was in 6 weeks. It was the event of the year for the business community, a black tie affair where corporate leaders received awards for their charitable work and community service. Maya's father was scheduled to receive the Integrity in Business Award for his company's work with food donation programs. The irony was so perfect it was almost poetic. Maya and David began planting seeds. Carefully orchestrated social media posts hinting that someone had explosive information about a major charity fraud. Anonymous tips to journalists suggesting they investigate the Chen Industries donation programs. Whispered rumors at business events that something big was about to be exposed. They wanted Marcus, Ethan, and Clara to know that someone was coming for them. They wanted them scared, paranoid, making mistakes. And it worked. 3 weeks before the gala, Maya received an unexpected visitor at the small apartment she'd been renting under an assumed name. She opened the door to find Ethan standing there, looking haggard and desperate. "Maya," he said, and his voice was pleading, "we need to talk." She almost slammed the door in his face. The sight of him brought back all the pain, all the humiliation, all the rage. This man had killed her mother. This man had destroyed her life. This man had stood at an altar and promised to love her while planning to betray her. But she needed to hear what he had to say. She needed to know how desperate they were getting. "You have 5 minutes," she said, not inviting him in. Ethan pulled out a suitcase, expensive leather, the kind he never could have afforded on his hotel employee salary. He opened it to reveal stacks and stacks of cash. $2 million, he said. "It's yours, all of it. Just take it and disappear. Go somewhere far away and start over. Forget about everything that happened." Maya stared at the money. It was more than she'd ever seen in one place. It could buy her a new life, a fresh start, freedom from all the pain and anger that was consuming her. But it was blood money. Money stolen from hungry children and sick patients. Money paid for her mother's murder and her own destruction. "Where did you get this?" she asked, though she already knew. "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you're playing with forces you don't understand. Maya, these people, they've already killed once to protect their secrets. They won't hesitate to do it again." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm trying to save your life." Ethan's composure cracked. "You think this is just about the wedding? About Clara and me? This is so much bigger than that. There are people involved who will do anything to keep this quiet. Anything." Maya looked at this man she'd once loved. This man who'd seemed so charming and romantic and perfect. Now she could see what she'd missed before. The calculation in his eyes. The way he measured every word for maximum impact. The complete absence of genuine emotion. "Did you ever love me?" she asked quietly. "Even a little bit?" Ethan's hesitation was answer enough. "Get out," Maya said. "Take your blood money and get out. And tell whoever sent you that I'm not backing down. Not now. Not ever." Ethan's face hardened. "You're making a mistake, Maya. A big one. You could have taken the money and lived. Now what? You'll kill me like you killed my mother?" Ethan's face went white. I didn't. You picked up her medication, Ethan. You switched out her heart pills for digitalis. You slowly poisoned the woman who trusted you, who welcomed you into our family, who thought you were going to make her daughter happy. You can't prove that." Maya smiled, and it was a cold, dangerous expression. "We'll see." Ethan left without another word, but Maya could see the fear in his eyes. They knew she had something. They just didn't know what. The final 2 weeks before the gala were intense. Maya and David worked around the clock, refining their presentation, gathering the last pieces of evidence, coordinating with law enforcement. Because this wasn't just going to be an exposure, it was going to be an arrest. The authorities had been reluctant to act at first. Marcus Chen was a prominent businessman with powerful connections. The evidence, while compelling, was mostly circumstantial. They needed something more concrete, more undeniable. Maya provided it. Hidden in her mother's jewelry box, which Veronica had salvaged before Marcus could dispose of Elena's belongings, was a small digital recorder. Elena had been documenting everything she discovered about the charity fraud, creating an audio diary of evidence in case something happened to her. Her voice, weak and frightened, filled David's apartment as they played the recordings. Day 12 of my investigation. I've confirmed that at least 40% of the donations are being diverted. The Children's Hospital receives spoiled food 3 times this month. Marcus doesn't know I know, but I've seen the invoices. I've seen where the money really goes. Day 18. I think someone suspects I'm investigating. Ethan has been asking strange questions about my medication, about my daily routine. I'm scared. I don't know who I can trust anymore. Day 23. I found the pharmacy records. Ethan has been picking up my medication for weeks. But the pills in my bottle aren't the right color. I think someone is trying to hurt me. If something happens to me, look for the evidence I've hidden in the safe deposit box. The key is in my jewelry box, behind the velvet lining. The last recording was dated the day before the wedding. I can't let Maya marry him. I can't let her become part of this nightmare. Tomorrow I'm going to tell her everything, even if it destroys her happiness. Better her heart be broken than her life destroyed. I just pray I have the courage to go through with it. Elena Chen never got the chance to save her daughter. but her voice from beyond the grave was going to save hundreds of other people. The night of the Heritage Foundation Gala, Maya stood in front of her bathroom mirror and applied her makeup with steady hands. She wore her mother's vintage silver dress, the one Elena had worn to her own engagement party 30 years ago. Around her neck was Elena's pearl necklace, and in her ears were the diamond earrings that had been her grandmother's. She looked like elegance itself, but underneath the beauty was steel, unbreakable, unforgiving steel. The ballroom at the Grand Metropolitan was a sea of glittering gowns and expensive tuxedos. Politicians mingled with business leaders. Celebrities posed for photos with philanthropists. Everyone who was anyone in the city was there to celebrate charity and good works. Maya entered alone, and the whispers started immediately. She'd expected that. The scandal of her wedding was still fresh in everyone's minds. People were surprised to see her there. Surprised she had the audacity to show her face at such a public event. Let them whisper. Let them stare. They had no idea what was coming. She spotted her father across the room, resplendent in his custom tuxedo, holding court with a group of admirers. He looked every inch the successful businessman, the generous philanthropist, the pillar of the community. The Integrity in Business Award sat on the head table, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Ethan and Clara were there too, of course. They stood together near the bar, her hand on his arm, both of them radiant with happiness. Clara wore a stunning red gown that hugged her curves perfectly. Ethan looked handsome and confident in his designer tux. They were the picture of a couple in love, finally free to be together after overcoming obstacles. The sight of them together still hurt. Maya couldn't pretend it didn't, but the pain was manageable now, tempered by the knowledge of what was about to happen. As the evening progressed, Maya positioned herself strategically around the room. She wanted to be seen, wanted her presence known. She wanted them to wonder what she was doing there, to feel the first stirrings of unease. Finally, the award ceremony began. Marcus Chen was introduced to thunderous applause. He walked to the podium with a broad smile, shaking hands with the foundation president, posing for photos with his gleaming award. "Thank you so much for this incredible honor," Marcus began his acceptance speech. "Chen Industries has always believed that success comes with responsibility. That's why we've dedicated ourselves to ensuring that our community's most vulnerable members, the sick, the elderly, the children in need, receive the nutrition they deserve." Maya felt sick listening to him. The false humility, the manufactured compassion, the complete lack of shame as he lied to a room full of people who trusted him. "Our food donation program has provided over 10 million meals to those in need over the past 5 years," Marcus continued. "Every meal prepared with love, every donation given with hope, every act of service performed with integrity." Integrity. He actually used the word integrity. Maya had heard enough. She stood up from her table in the back of the room and began walking toward the stage. Conversation stopped as people noticed her movement. All eyes turned to follow the bride who'd been so publicly humiliated, wondering what she was doing, where she was going. Marcus saw her coming and faltered mid-sentence. His face went pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. "As I was saying, integrity is the foundation of everything we do." Maya reached the foot of the stage and spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed ballroom. "Before we celebrate integrity," she said, "perhaps we should discuss what that word actually means." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Marcus gripped the podium, his knuckles white. From across the room, Maya could see Ethan and Clara pushing through the crowd, trying to reach her, but it was too late. "Ladies and gentlemen," Maya continued, producing a small remote control from her purse, "I'd like to show you what real integrity looks like." The screens around the ballroom, the ones that had been displaying photos of the foundation's charitable works, suddenly changed. Financial documents appeared. Invoices showing food purchased for charity donations being resold to Chen Industries restaurants. Bank statements showing the diverted funds. Hospital reports documenting food poisoning cases. The room fell into stunned silence as people read the evidence displayed in front of them. This man, Maya said, pointing at her father, has stolen millions of dollars worth of food meant for sick children, elderly patients, and homeless families. He's resold it to his own restaurants at marked up prices while claiming tax deductions for charitable donations he never made. Marcus tried to speak, but his voice came out as a croak. Maya, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, Maya cut him off. I understand that you sold me like property to cover up your crimes. I understand that you poisoned my mother when she discovered what you were doing. I understand that you destroyed my life to protect your secrets. Clara finally reached the front of the room, her face twisted with panic. She's lying, Clara screamed. She's insane. She can't handle that Ethan chose me. Maya turned to look at her cousin, the woman she'd loved like a sister, the woman who'd betrayed her in the cruelest way possible. Tell them about the children's hospital, Clara, Maya said calmly. Tell them how you identified which donation programs would be easiest to exploit. Tell them about the elderly man who died from contaminated soup that you helped divert from its intended recipients. Clara's face crumpled. The mask of innocence fell away, revealing the calculating, heartless person beneath. It wasn't supposed to hurt anyone, Clara broke down completely. It was just supposed to be money. It wasn't supposed to kill people. The confession rang out across the silent ballroom. Every word was being recorded by the news cameras that had been positioned to document the charity gala. Every admission of guilt was being broadcast live. But Maya wasn't finished. She pressed another button on her remote, and her mother's voice filled the ballroom. Elena's final audio diary entry, recorded the night before the wedding. I can't let Maya marry him. I can't let her become part of this nightmare. If something happens to me, if I don't survive to tell her the truth, then someone needs to know that her marriage is a lie. Her husband is a murderer. Her cousin is a traitor. Her father has become a monster. Maya deserves so much better than this family of criminals and killers. Elena's voice, weak but determined, spoke to a room of hundreds of the city's most powerful people. Her final testimony, her last act of love for her daughter, was exposing the truth that had gotten her killed. The silence that followed was deafening. Then chaos erupted. People were shouting, pointing, pulling out phones to record everything. Security guards were moving toward the stage, but they didn't know who to arrest first. Maya made the decision for them. Officers, she called to the plainclothes police who'd been stationed around the room. I believe you have warrants to serve. Detective Sarah Martinez stepped forward, her badge clearly visible. Marcus Chen, you're under arrest for charity fraud, tax evasion, and conspiracy to commit murder. More officers appeared, surrounding Ethan and Clara. Ethan Rodriguez, you're under arrest for first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit fraud. Clara Chen, you're under arrest as an accessory to fraud and conspiracy. The arrest played out in front of the entire city's elite. The man who just received an award for integrity was being handcuffed on stage. The couple who'd been portrayed as star-crossed lovers were being read their rights in front of cameras. The fairy tale romance was revealed as a criminal conspiracy. Maya watched it all with a sense of profound satisfaction. Justice wasn't just being served. It was being served publicly, humiliatingly, with the same lack of privacy and dignity that they'd shown her. But the most satisfying moment came when Ethan, being led away in handcuffs, turned to look at her one last time. This won't bring your mother back, he said, his voice full of spite. Maya stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear her response. No, she said quietly, but it will make sure she didn't die for nothing. And it will make sure you spend the rest of your life remembering that you underestimated the wrong woman. The trials that followed were media sensations. Every detail of the fraud scheme was exposed, every victim given a voice, every crime laid bare for the world to see. Maya testified for 3 days, calmly and thoroughly destroying every lie they'd built their lives on. Marcus Chen received 25 years for fraud and conspiracy. The murder charges couldn't quite stick. The evidence was strong but circumstantial, and his lawyers were good. But 25 years was enough to ensure he'd die in prison. Ethan wasn't as lucky. The digitalis found in Elena's system combined with the pharmacy records and Maya's testimony about his access to her medication, was enough for a murder conviction. Life without parole. Clara received 15 years as an accessory. She tried to claim she was just following orders, just a victim of manipulation. But the evidence of her active participation in identifying charity targets destroyed that defense. The money, all of it, was recovered and returned to the charitable organizations it had been stolen from. New programs were established in Elena's name to ensure better oversight of donation systems. The children's hospitals, elderly care facilities, and homeless shelters that had been victims of the fraud received additional funding to make up for what they'd lost. Maya used her inheritance, what was left after legal fees and restitution payments, to establish the Elena Chen Foundation for Truth and Charity. She hired David as the director, and together they worked to expose other fraud schemes, to protect vulnerable populations from exploitation, to ensure that other families didn't have to go through what hers had endured. The work was difficult, often heartbreaking, but it gave Maya's life meaning in a way that her privileged upbringing never had. She was no longer just Marcus Chen's daughter or Ethan Rodriguez's betrayed wife. She was Maya Chen, investigator, advocate, voice for the voiceless. But the healing took time, years in fact. Maya still had nightmares about the wedding, about watching Ethan walk past her to Clara, about her mother collapsing at the head table. She still felt the ghost pain of betrayal, the phantom ache of trust shattered beyond repair. Therapy helped, work helped, time helped. But what helped most was knowing that her mother's death hadn't been in vain, that Elena's courage in documenting the truth had saved hundreds of other people from becoming victims, that her final act of love for Maya had destroyed the people who destroyed their family. On the 5th anniversary of Elena's death, Maya stood at her mother's grave with a single white rose and a printed copy of the latest foundation report. They'd recovered over $50 million in fraudulent charity schemes that year. They'd sent 12 criminals to prison. They'd saved countless lives. "They can't silence your truth anymore, Mom," Maya whispered, the same words she'd spoken that first year after the trials ended. "Your voice is louder now than it ever was when you were alive." And in the wind that rustled through the cemetery trees, Maya could almost hear her mother's response. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. I'm so proud of who you've become." Maya had lost everything: her marriage, her family, her innocence, her faith in the people she loved most. But in losing everything, she'd found something else: strength, purpose, and the unshakable knowledge that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The betrayal that was meant to destroy her had instead forged her into someone unstoppable. Someone who would never again be naive enough to trust blindly, but who would also never be cynical enough to stop fighting for justice. Some betrayals shatter you into pieces so small you can never be put back together the same way. But sometimes, if you're very lucky and very strong, those pieces can be reformed into something harder, sharper, more beautiful than what came before. Something unbreakable. Something that can cut through lies and expose truth, no matter how many powerful people want to keep it buried. Maya learned that betrayal isn't always an ending. Sometimes it's the beginning of something much more powerful. Sometimes it's the beginning of justice. So tell me, friends, was Maya right to expose her own family? Could you have done what she did, knowing it would destroy everyone you'd ever loved? Could you have found the strength to turn your own pain into a weapon against injustice? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you believe in the power of truth over lies, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Because sometimes the most important stories are the ones that remind us that even in our darkest moments, even when we've lost everything, we still have the power to choose justice over revenge, truth over silence, and courage over fear. Maya's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about what happens when someone refuses to stay down, refuses to be silenced, refuses to let criminals win. It's about what happens when the quiet ones finally find their voice. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when they do.